Just a few things on it. I would ask people who are in support of the bill if they would rise.
Okay, we certainly appreciate y'all taking time for your day to be here with us this afternoon. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, the matter, I suppose, is the Third Amendment.
Okay. We probably should allow the opponents or those that would have concerns about the measure to come forward before we move forward with that amendment. Okay? Those that have concerns about this measure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Trey Davis, and I represent the Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. The substitute for House Bill 1430 that you have in front of you is a very significant policy change, and our opposition is based off of our members' policy that they ratified again this past December, that they believe the Right to Farm Act adequately provides for protection from localities in regards to production agriculture. And that's a policy that has mostly been in place since 1994, when the current Right to Farm Act that you have in front of you has served our membership well. We've worked early on in session with the patron and with the supporters, and we're pretty far apart, mainly I think because we're looking to address a problem in the substitute for 1430 that our membership does not feel exists, and that's mainly the sale of byproducts. Right now, what has been good about the Right to Farm Act is it puts emphasis on the localities to work with farmers to look at how they want to sell byproducts in that locality. The reason our membership supports that is because what you're going to sell and how you want to sell is going to look very different in Lee County than it does in Accomack County. And I think if you were to ask some farmers that have worked on these ordinances, they would tell you there was a process, like most of local governments, when you went through the planning commission, you had a public hearing, and you sat down and worked with your board of supervisors. The language that you have in the substitute from lines 17 to 20 is still pretty wide open. And all it says right now that it has to be related to an agricultural operation. Has to be sold from, at, or by an agricultural operation, and has to be related to agriculture. Nothing about being produced on that farm, nothing about being produced on a farm. It says that you can sell it as long as it's remotely related to agriculture. That gives us some concern because when you have pretty much anything popping up on agricultural land, localities are going to look at those farms and they're either going to A, rezone it, or B, get rid of some of the protections they give it to farmers in that locality. I did want to draw your attention, the First Amendment that you adopted, Mr. Chairman, if I may. I think it is substantive in the sense that while it could mandate that this is less than a majority amount of production or sales, a question that we have asked along the way is how are you going to prove that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, Treasurer. Can I ask a question? Because he made a point that I have a question about.
Okay, go right ahead.
Trey, you say there's nothing to tie this to an agricultural operation or to the farm. But as I read this on line 13, it starts out, agricultural operation means any operation devoted to the bona fide production of crops. And it goes on. And then on line 16, we begin with the definition of agricultural operation, which includes the things that you or Farm Bureau apparently finds offensive. It seems pretty clear to me that this is talking about selling things that you raise or produce on your farm or byproducts of that. And maybe I missed what, maybe we're not reading the same bill, but can you explain to me why that doesn't cover that?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, our interpretation, and as we've asked other folks for their interpretation, is that the lines that food, beverages, furniture, or other items in particular, since other items is not, at least in our opinion, all-encompassing of the language that you have at the beginning of this bill, it opens it pretty wide open as long as it's related to agriculture.
Mr. Chairman, do you not read this to mean that it's things that are produced on that agricultural operation? That's the way I read it. And I think that's the intent of the patron and those who are here today. Is there something, I don't get what you're saying here. This looks very clear to me.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, that is our interpretation. If there is a way to clarify further that it has to be grown on that farm, produced on that farm, because that is not the way we have interpreted it.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Richard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Jordan will allow
my last comment, Mr. Chairman, in regards to the First Amendment, that you adopted earlier that has to constitute less than a majority amount of production or sales. My question is, if the locality wanted to find out how an individual farmer was producing less than a majority of these byproducts, how would they find out? Would it have to be a turnover of federal income taxes? And that's where our concern would lie. We'd be happy to work with the stakeholders throughout the year. We would ask that you keep the reenactment clause on, but we remain opposed to the bill because we don't want to open this code section beyond.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Question, Trey, you would admit, and earlier in your testimony, you said what might be for sale in Acmac is different from Lee County. You would admit that, say, in my county of Franklin, that our German Baptist farmers are able to sell their wares, the crops that they grow to the public right there on the farm, are they not?
Yes, sir.
And you wouldn't disagree with me that that is a direct benefit economically and otherwise to my county of Franklin, would you?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stanley, I would agree with that.
Okay, further question? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so you wouldn't, I guess what I'm trying to understand is why would my farmer, my small farmer in Franklin County be able to sell the product that he or she grows directly from their crops, their fields to the consumer, but we don't allow that in every county, the people in Fauquier are not?
I would say I'm not aware of any counties where farmers are not able to sell what they produce on their farms to consumers.
Further question, Mr. Chairman. You would agree that at a very minimum that these ordinances of Fauquier County severely restrict and or prohibit that farmer from selling their goods in the same manner that they do in another county 2.5 hours, 3 hours away?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stanley, I can't comment on every single locality, but what I can say is Franklin is a good example where the locality worked with farmers to adopt the ordinance that they have.
Final question, Mr. Chairman. Trey, you're familiar with the Agriculture and Forestry Development Fund that we started last year?
Yes, sir.
And you would agree, and further follow, Mr. Chairman, and Trey, you would agree that that creates the ability of the farmer to have processing there in the locality rather than to go off-site?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that I'm not sure about that specific part of the aphid grant. I do know we have some staff here from the governor's office, but about that I'm not specifically sure.
Mr. Chairman, final question. Trey, would you not think that it is not the inherent right of every farmer, as it was when they began farming in the Commonwealth of Virginia long before the capital moved to Richmond, that it would be the same right that they had way back then to sell their product from their fields directly to the consumer as they are seeking to do today?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stanley, I would say that we certainly support that, and I believe that is the case today.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stanley.
And Trey, and I know you work very hard for farm interests, and I would tell you this, I mean, farming produces over 7,000 jobs in just Pennsylvania and Danville alone. But I can tell you, Trey, I know you stand here and say your membership supports your opposition to this bill, and I have received nothing but phone calls from people in my district, overwhelming numbers of farmer phone calls who are members of the Farm Bureau who have said to support this bill. You would agree that even though this is the position of perhaps your governing body, that you have pretty much a split, at least a split, in determining of whether to support this bill or not. Would you agree?
I would say based off of our policy, which we do not count specifically, but I would not say it was split. It was an overwhelming majority that believes the right to farm protects their agricultural interests.
Mr. Chairman, an overwhelming membership of your governing body or an overwhelming part of your whole membership, which is thousands of people?
Of our voting membership from the 88 county farm bureaus that met this past year in Virginia.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Stanley, one more question.
Yes. And Trey, I asked you to have some of those people call me. How come I didn't get any phone calls?
I'm not sure, Senator, but I can speak for some folks, and afterwards, if you would like to speak to them directly from your area that I know are opposed to HB1430.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, let's if we can, allow the people with concerns to come forward quickly and express those concerns, and then the committee can interrogate or whatever.